Good day. Well, once we had the GTA clone, we now have the open world sandbox genre. A favorite of many, mainly because, well, these are little worlds you can go in and have all sorts of fun with. Really, the open world sandbox genre is generally what I thought gaming was heading to back in the day. My thought was that with greater processing power and greater graphical complexity, we could have worlds that we can play through, and overall I haven't really been disappointed, as it seems that that's just about what every game is trying to be these days, for good or ill. Now, back when they first came out, when they were called GTA clones, my favorite GTA clones were True Crime Streets of LA, because you had to play as a cop, and Mercenaries Playground of Destruction, mainly because you played as a fairly competent and fairly decent, I suppose, in some respects, depending on which character you picked, mercenary. And your enemy was indeed North Korea, a particular faction that just about anybody can say is bad. Now, when it came to GTA, I never really enjoyed that particular game series, mainly because I don't want to play as a criminal, nor do I like playing as the bad guy. Now today, we're actually going to be taking a look at Just Cause 2. Now, I had never heard of Just Cause 1, but when I saw a number of gameplay videos on YouTube, I had to have it. So now, let's strap on a magical grappling hook and parachute into Pinal and see just what kind of chaos we can cause. Ostensibly, many of these open world sandbox games are third-person shooters. Fairly competent ones at that. The third-person shooter genre has been done so much it's very hard to actually mess up, unless you're an extremely incompetent developer. The shooting in this game works really quite well, and you can carry a number of weapons on your person at any one time. 2 pistols or SMGs, and 1 rifle or rocket launcher. You can also carry a number of grenades and explosives as well. Really, if it were not for one element, this would be another run-of-the-mill open-world sandbox game amongst the multitude. Instead, you get what is likely one of the coolest weapons / transportation device of all time. You get the grappling hook. The grappling hook, ladies and gentlemen, is awesome for a number of reasons, but chief among them is the fact that you can use it as a means of transport, and you can use it like the bloody Batman. You never have to reload it, and it has absolutely massive range, and there is nothing more fun than just grappling about a major city. Now in the game, ammo is somewhat scarce, but let's face it, the chief idea of the game is not shooting, rather it's every bloody thing else. When you have access to multiple flavors of helicopter and jet fighter, rifles seem so mundane. Yes, indeed. The main idea of the game is to cause as much chaos as possible. And you have tools aplenty. There are numerous helos and planes to attack your foes with, and if you get shot down, just grapple another one and capture it, and then get right back to killing. The main objective in this game is to fly around the various areas and blow shit up in the name of freedom. We're going to liberate the hell out of this island. Now, you're only going to be destroying military installations of the corrupt and criminal regime that uses military oppression on its people, so the game does not get edgy when it comes to fighting the enemy. And the title itself is rather apt for 2 reasons. For one, the main character Rico is just in his cause of taking down a Kim-style dictator because we know just how bad they really are in real life. And for another, why did you blow up an entire military base with a chain gun? Just cause! And really, that's the gameplay right there. Go throughout the land, liberating the populace by blowing as much shit up as possible. Technically, the game is not wrong in this regard. In real life, if you hit the enemy in the supply chain, that makes it rather hard for them to keep fighting. And Rico, the title character, does make the dictator, Baby Panay, as he's called, look rather incompetent, which is also damaging to the government as a whole. Now in the game, you can also collect a variety of gubbins, vehicle parts to unlock new vehicles, health upgrades to increase your maximum health, but really none of these upgrades are all that important. And really, your shop area here is actually more useful just for the fast travel rather than anything else, mainly because you can find all the vehicles you could ever want for free, and you don't really take that much damage as a whole. Fast travel is rather necessary because this is an absolutely massive game. Just Cause 2 is fucking massive. You have multiple cities to run amok in, and you have multiple biomes to explore. Now, my only real complaint with the gameplay with this particular game is the fact that it gets a bit too easy. Essentially, there don't seem to be that many enemies that attack you at any one time, but when they do attack you, they don't do that much damage. And it's very hard to actually get a significant challenge out of the enemies as well. And there are some instances where you go through a dry spell of enemies and you end up just driving along as though this was a bloody vacation simulator of some description. Now, one of the most fun aspects of the game is when it actually gets hard. Around the various military bases are SAM launchers, and they're actually pretty bloody accurate, and they can shoot you down fairly quickly. And so generally before attacking any sort of military installation, you're going to want to have some sort of plan, even if it's just a plan of go in on foot and blow everything up with grenades. But still though, I love the SAM launchers, and I would have liked to have seen a lot more enemies attack you at any one time. One of the coolest locations in the game has got to be the giant bloody airship! Yes, in the game there is a giant bloody airship that you can fly to and have a decent amount of fun with. It would have been nice if there had been something more done with it though, as it really is just a flying nightclub. I mean seriously, it's a giant bloody airship! I want to shoot that thing down! If only it had just been a military airship that had defenses, or at the very least it needed to be bloody destructible, damn it! Just imagine the awesomeness of blowing it up! Well, I'm on a watch list now. Graphically, the game looks pretty bloody good. All the vehicles are fairly well detailed, and the character models look pretty bloody good and have aged rather well. Sadly, the same can't be said for the music. The music for the game is as basic as one would expect from a modern game, and none of the tracks really stand out. But these days, that's to be expected, and one can just run their own music anyway, and the game goes rather well with, surprisingly, 90s alt-rock of all things. Voice acting is suitably goofy and fits the tone of the game rather well. And what we're looking at here specifically is the PC port of the game. And Just Cause 2 is one of those games that just keeps giving to the cause of the glorious PC gaming master race, as it is indeed an excellent PC port. The game scales remarkably well, and I'm playing it maxed out on a GTX 460. The keyboard and mouse can be used with the controller plugged in without the game going mad, and you can switch between the two on the fly. Now, if only other PC ports could boast the same. One more thing I like is the fact that the game is not massively huge in file size. So many modern games are tens of gigabytes in size. Bloody Doom 4 was 50 fucking gigabytes. To put that in perspective, in the early 2000s, my Dell had a maximum 50 gigabyte hard drive. Just Cause 2 here, despite the massive size of the in-game world and graphical complexity, is less than 5 gigabytes, which is pretty awesome in my book. Now, in addition to the PC version, I've also played the 360 version. In fact, that is the version I played the most of, and that's the one I picked up upon release. Its graphics are on par with the PC version, and it controls fairly well with the 360 controller, and I never got any slowdown either while playing the game. And now on to the story, which despite one might think, is actually pretty good. Now keep in mind, this is primarily a gameplay game and not a story game. This is a game where you go and you do this.
Why go over when you can go under?
When I first played the game on the Xbox 360, I put in about 40 hours. And really, I only paid attention to the story for about 2 hours of those 40. And really, this is a game where you're going to be having fun, not thinking. And yet, if you can tear yourself away from the mayhem for just a moment, you will find a fairly interesting and funny story going on. The game is surprisingly smart too. It's goofy to say the least, with Baby Panay being a shoo-in for Dr. Evil. But seriously, who throws a bloody shoe? The characters are all goofy as well, and this game feels like it's a parody of the modern action open world sandbox genre. Stop me if you've heard this before. You, the lone hero, must go into a city, planet, or other, and work with 4 or 5 factions to take down a big boss. Essentially, the whole game centered around causing chaos. As you cause more chaos, new missions get unlocked for the various factions you can work for. Now, each faction is worse than the last, which is a parody of how in other games your factions are usually nominally good, or there is at least potentially one kind of good faction. Here, all the factions are particularly nasty. Rico, on the other hand, is not necessarily a terrible person. Really, Rico is awesome because he's not tied to that modern angsty standard protagonist idiocy. Rico is a badass, and he knows it and acts it. You won't see him whinging at the drop of a hat, and he's up there with the likes of Doom Guy and Duke, King of the World Nukem, in terms of sheer manliness. And it's also cool to see that he is not cut from the same generic cloth as most gaming protagonists these days. Really, the best aspect of the story is, while it's a parody, it's not a mean-spirited one. The biggest problem with parodies is the fact that many are just unpleasantly mean-spirited because the writers of said parodies think it is the only way to get a cheap laugh. Here the parody works because they lampshade this genre's tropes by taking them to goofy levels. You're not going to see constant condemnation of the player for enjoying blowing shit up, and you won't even see that much condemnation for America's world policeman concept either, which is really quite surprising. Really, one somewhat sad aspect of the game is the fact that Panau and Baby Panau, the dictator, are not as goofy as you would think. When playing the game, the whole megalomaniacal dictator/dictatorship concept appears to be taken to 11. Sadly, there are many countries in the world that have dictators that make Panay look like bloody Thomas Jefferson, and there are many countries that make Panau itself look like a bloody paradise. And the concept of a coup like what happens in the game can still happen in real life. I was doing some random reading on Wikipedia, and it would turn out that Thailand had a military coup in 2014. Holy shit, ladies and gentlemen, reality is indeed much worse than fiction at times. And it goes to show you just how fast the world can change. When I first recorded the audio for this video, there had yet to be an attempted coup in Turkey. Holy shit, ladies and gentlemen, it almost seems like we're living in a bloody video game at times. And we really should be appreciative of what we have instead of complaining all the bloody time. Oh yes, life could be much worse indeed. Well, with that depressing reality check out of the way, let's check a look at the multiplayer. The PC gaming master race never ceases to amaze. Here is why the PC is superior to all. When shipped, the game did not have multiplayer, but some enterprising individuals in their own time created their own multiplayer for the game. And since its release, it has been constantly developed and improved. It's still not perfect, though. There are numerous servers to join, and each kind of do their own thing, and there are numerous game modes to play. Personally, I have not played the Just Cause 2 multiplayer mod all that much, but from what little I have played, it's a fairly well-designed multiplayer mod. And of course, it will get better as time goes on. And so that is Just Cause 2, a stupendously awesome game all around. And thankfully, it's quite easy to pick up these days, be it on console or PC, as the price has gone way down. And yes, I am aware of Just Cause 3, but I have no real desire to play it, as I am well aware of all the various bad things surrounding it that were mainly due to the publisher being an asshole. But, well, that's the state of modern gaming these days. But, whatever the case may be, I am GeneralLotz, wishing you good GTA 3, and good True Crime Hong Kong, or whatever makes you happy. If you enjoyed the Just Cause 2 review, please consider subscribing, and if you can, please consider supporting me on Patreon so I can continue to bring you these great reviews.